Our next guest is the wife of the late Senator John McCain and the chair of the board of the McCain Institute, where she leads the Human Trafficking Advisory Council. Please welcome to the show, Cindy McCain. How are you, Cindy?
Thank you. I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's always lovely to see you, and I want to talk about the fact that you are a lifelong Republican who has endorsed Joe Biden. I did not realize, however, that Dr. Jill Biden introduced you and your late husband, Senator John McCain.
Yes, she did. It was fun. It was in Hawaii. I was invited with my parents to a reception that was being held for a group of senators on their way through Hawaii to China. And John happened to be there. And although I didn't see this when it initially happened, but I guess when I came in the room, he was staring at me. And she said, "Go meet her. Go over there and talk to her." So he did, and the rest is history.
Was did he have a good approach game when he first came over? Were you interested immediately?
Yeah, no, I was. I mean, when he walked over to me, this guy's really cute. And then later on that night, we went and had a drink at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, which is, has tiki torches and everything else going on. And then he called me from China. He wound up calling me from China when he got there. So I guess it was love at first sight. It was fun.
Can you talk a little about the transition you made from one sort of privately supporting Joe Biden to making the decision to go public with it?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was gradual in some respects. I, like everyone else, had watched what was going on with this president and the actions that the White House were taking on various issues. And, it started like everyone. I spent my day yelling at the TV when I was watching it. And the final blow for me, not only just the lack of empathy and compassion, the lack of character, the absolute unbelievable issue of not working in a bipartisan fashion at all. But the final blow for me was when he called our troops losers and suckers. And I have 3 members of my family, 2 sons and a daughter-in-law that are serving. And I at that point, I said, I can sit here and yell at the TV, or I can get up and do something. And so that's what I did. And I decided to openly endorse him. I am a Republican, though, and I'm going to remain a Republican.
So I wonder what you would say to other Republicans whose intention is to obviously stay loyal to the party, who are making this decision between maybe not supporting the president, but also being hesitant to vote for Joe Biden. Maybe a lot of them would say, well, I'm just not going to vote at all. What would you say to them?
Well, that's what I'm trying to help avoid, obviously. Judging by the outcome of all, now 67 million early ballots have been turned in, I think we're not going to have a problem with people not voting. But what I do want people to realize, look, this is, I don't agree with Joe on everything. I believe that Joe will work in a bipartisan fashion, though, to reach common ground and work on issues that are important for us. And more importantly, I mean, a large part of this is the fact that Joe has a COVID plan. Unlike the rest, the White House and the rest of the members, he believes it's real. He believes and talks to the scientists involved. And now, it's time that we put his plan into action. It's things like that I tell Republicans when they ask me, I'm tired of my president not having my back on things. And more importantly, not having our country's back internationally. We've left our allies behind. We've left we've withdrawn from treaties, et cetera. Our country is not well respected overseas either in all of this. There's a lot at stake here.
Your husband was attacked by the president in his trademark a style of cruelty, not only when he was alive, but after he passed. Do you think John would enjoy the fact that he's still taking up so much headspace of the president?
Our family has talked about that a little bit. I know one thing for sure. John would be very disappointed in what's going on right now. This was not, what he believed in, nor would he ever have wanted to ever happen. I think the fact that he is taking up headspace is kind of hilarious on occasion.
You mentioned the lack of this sort of COVID response plan, and I think that maybe runs parallel with Senator McCain's decision to give the thumbs down to the Obamacare repeal. It wasn't that he was a great fan of Obamacare, but he recognized in the moment that there was not a replacement. Did you talk to him a great deal about that moment when he, now quite significantly broke with his party?
Right. We talked about it beforehand. Things like that, to give you a little behind the scenes thing. A lot was going on in the cloakroom behind. The vice president was back there. The governor of Arizona, I believe, was on the phone. They were lobbying my husband pretty hard. But the one thing he knew is that we could not do away with Obamacare without a plan on the other side, and there was no plan. So he had in his mind, and I believe rightly, and as he agreed, it was the right thing to do. These kinds of votes and decisions, you're not always popular when you make the right decision. And John knew that, and John abided by it, and I'm glad he did what he did. I really am. But they did put a full court press on him.
Obviously, right now, we're in the last week of the campaign. You've been through this, Melania.
Crazy time right now. Last week of the campaign is nuts. So,
what is the energy like?
Oh, it's wild. No one gets any sleep. Everyone's really running on coffee and probably a little liquor too. And it's just, it's nonstop. These last 7 days are nonstop. And, because you got to get to the finish line.
We crossed paths during the last 7 days in 2008 because for all your accomplishments, you're also a very accomplished sketch actor. Here you are. This was a QVC sketch we did. We're in the final days of the campaign. The senator was trying to raise some campaign funds, and you did a very good job in this sketch. Do you have fond memories of that night?
I do. There are a lot of people say, well, aren't campaigns hard and, all those things. And there are some very hard moments, but doing SNL was a fun moment. And as you know, my husband did it several times, and I was just grateful to be a part of that. I had a great time. It was fun.
Another thing that bonded your family with the Bidens is and you mentioned it earlier, military service. Obviously, it's been true of both your families. Is that something that John and Joe would speak about often?
Often, yes. Our sons both left at about the same time for Iraq. And so here Joe was running for vice president. My husband was running for president. And we both had two sons serving in Iraq at the same time. It's not only a bonding experience for the families, but it made both families, and of course the Biden family, understand what the families of troops go through when they deploy. I mean, it's hard. And so he has a different perspective and a good perspective on what it means to serve your country in the military and the effect it has on families. But more importantly, we have that commonality. But as you know, we had the commonality of glioblastoma, which hit both of our families. And so it would be hard to separate the Biden and the McCain family in years to come because we're just too good of friends. You also have spoken of former Vice President Biden's empathy, and I guess that was on display. He did come and visit your husband in the final days, yeah? He did. He came out. My husband was still alert, a little bit. He wasn't too alert, but he was alert and awake and recognized Joe and could talk a little bit. And Joe had just been through this with Beau. I mean, he'd just been through it. And here he is out in Arizona, number one, joking like crazy with John. John was laughing as best he could. I mean, it was fun to watch it and just the normal things. We prayed together, and then he consoled our family. And I don't know that I could have had the strength, having lost a son, to have gone in to have helped another family with the same problem that we had. So it's an incredible. I mean, we do have a lot in common. And Joe, this is a perfect example of how Joe gives. He just always gives, and he cares so much about people. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with us. Always love to see you. Love to you and your family. Thank you very much. Same to you.